Hey there. We're just having some computer stuff going on, so if you give me just a minute. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Good evening. My name is Carolyn Kalba, and I'm the Stewardship Director for the Sowing Conservancy. And tonight, you are in the Sowing Conservancy office. It's a little-known place. Most people have never been here, but I'm very excited to be here. And before I get started on our program for tonight, I just want to show off a little bit of merch. It's the holiday season. So it's deer hunting season. It's really important to wear bright orange. So we have orange beanie hats for sale. The Seeing the Sourlands book is fabulous. If you haven't gotten it, you should get it for yourself and for a friend and a loved one. Jim Amon is the author. He's written so many wonderful essays. He has fabulous pictures and wonderful essays on species in the Sourlands and other important and fascinating facts about the Sourlands. So make sure you check it out. We also have our hiking atlas. There are 25 preserves in the Sourlands to go hiking at. So do yourself a favor, get yourself an atlas and get out on the trails. We have beautiful, beautiful cards. These are note cards. They were all done by local artists. There are 5 different cards in a pack. They're beautiful. I love using these for thank you cards for folks. So check that out. And then finally, our newest addition is a poster created by Kevin Berkman. It's really fabulous. The Sourlands is a great place, and who doesn't want a huge poster of the Sourlands in their house? So go ahead, check it out. Corinna, is it on sale now, or is it still pre-sale?
Pre-sale up until Friday.
Pre-sale up until Friday. You heard it.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Friday. Oh my goodness. Well, either way, make sure you go ahead and support local, shop local artists, businesses, and organizations. And thank you for tuning in and helping us save the Sourlands. So let me clean this off before I make a big mess. Okay, so right here, I have my annual appeal letter. I hope you got yours too. If you didn't, you can email us at info@sourlands.org and we can send you one. But on the outside of my envelope, it says native seed packet inside, and there sure is. So step 1 of growing native plants, open up your envelope. Step 2 is read our annual appeal. Again, beautiful. Our Maya did this annual appeal with, I think, the help of Michelle Baker, another great local businesswoman. And I will make sure to donate to the Sowing Conservancy later. So, or you could do it first. I'm not judging. Whatever you would like to do. So, let's get started. Inside your annual appeal packet, our annual appeal letter, is a seed packet. And this native plant is wing stem, Verbicina alternifolia. And it is a beautiful native plant. It has yellow flowers, and it's considered to be really, really important for pollinators. The Xerces Society says it's a very valuable plant. And that's because it supports a lot of different bees and wasps. It's more important for bees and wasps that have really long tongues to be able to get into the tubular parts of wing stems. So it's also the host plant for silvery checker spot butterfly, summer azure butterfly, and the gold moth. So it's a great plant, and so we're going to talk about how to grow it. So there's a couple different ways of growing native plants from seed, and the way that I'm going to show you today is using a milk jug or a water jug. There are other ways of doing it, and we are going to be hosting a workshop with Rachel Macco of Wild Rich Plants. If you don't know her, she is a native plant growing goddess. She knows her stuff like nobody else, and she's been really gracious to offer to help us run this workshop. So make sure you check out your e-newsletter. It's only for members to be able to attend this workshop, and it's going to sell out quick. So if you want to be part of it, please keep an eye out for that. Okay, on to growing these native plants. So a lot of native plants need cold stratification to be able to germinate. And what that means is that it needs some sort of process, and in this case cold, to break down the seed coat on the outside of the seed. A lot of the plants that we might grow from seeds, like our vegetable garden, indoor vegetables, or some of our flowers like zinnias and sunflowers, they don't need anything to break down the seed coat. But a lot of our native plants do. Some don't, but a lot of them do, and wing stem is one of them. So to be able to cold stratify our plants, we're going to have to keep it outside all winter to be able to have that seed coat broken. And we're going to be doing that in milk jugs or water jugs or any type of clear plastic. And so what I did here is I drilled holes into the bottom of this milk jug. It's a lot easier if you drill the holes before you cut it in half, so you have something sturdy to lean on. If you don't have a power tool, you can always use a knife and just be very careful and cut, probably 4 to 6 slits in the bottom, and these are for drainage holes to let water filter out. The next thing that you want to do is cut your jug almost completely off. You're going to cut it in half, but you're just going to leave a little spot where it hinges, because this is going to put the soil inside here, and then we're going to close the top. So now that we're at this step, I would suggest doing this outside, not inside in your office. So good thing I have a little tub, so hopefully I won't make too big of a mess. And so you're going to fill this with potting soil. If you don't want to use potting soil, some folks suggest using a seed starting mix. And basically what a seed starting mix is just perlite, vermiculite, and peat moss. Some people have some bad feelings about peat moss, and I don't blame them. So instead of using peat moss, you can use cocoa coir, which is parts of the husk of a coconut on the outside. You can use that instead of peat moss. And vermiculite and perlite are just minerals, or naturally occurring minerals. They're not hazardous or anything like that, but they're heated up and they create a lot of aeration. When they're heated up, you can kind of see this. This is perlite right here. And perlite is really great for aeration for your seeds. Vermiculite is really great at holding water. They both hold water and create aeration, but vermiculite's a little bit better at water retention, and perlite's a little bit better at soil aeration. So you can make your own seed starting mix by using 1/3 of perlite, 1/3 of vermiculite, and 1/3 of cocoa coir. You can also use straight up potting mix. That's what I used last year. The issue with potting mix is that sometimes for some seeds, not necessarily wing stem, but for some seeds, having a lot of nitrogen or phosphorus in the mix can inhibit germination of your seeds. And germination is when the seedling starts to erupt from the seed. It's when it wakens up. But last year I grew about 30 different plants from seed, and I used potting mix and I didn't have any problem. So it is dependent on the species that you're trying to grow, but if you don't have seed starting mix or have access to vermiculite, perlite, and cocoa coir, it's totally fine to use regular old potting mix. I would avoid using soil if you're going to be doing this in here, just because a lot of the soil, at least in my backyard, has a lot of clay in it, and it can be really hard on those little seedlings, and also doesn't drain very well. So that's another thing. That's an issue with using garden soil when you're trying to do seed starting. But anyways, I digress. Here we go. So I have some potting mix here, and I'm going to fill up my milk jug. And I want to make sure that I make it deep enough so that these little seedlings can develop a nice root system. Here's another thing about seed starting mix. There's no nutrients in that. So after your cotyledons, those are cotyledons or your embryonic leaves that come up, once they fall off, your plant is going to need nutrients. So the seed has all the nutrients it needs to be able to germinate and just start growing. But after about 2 weeks or so, the cotyledons are going to fall off and your plant is going to need some nutrients. So you could always amend your seed starting mix with some compost to add nutrients in there. But right when they first germinate, they don't need anything other than a substrate to germinate in. So here we go. All right, so I filled this up. You can see there's about 2.5, 3 inches of soil in there. And now I'm going to add some water. Again, remember, you put holes in the bottom of that jug, so you don't want to sit at the table and pour water on, or else you're going to get really wet lap. So I have it in my nice little container here, so I don't ruin the office floor and table. And you just want to wet it. You don't want it to be really soggy, but when you wet your soil, it's going to sink down a little bit, so you might need to add a little bit more. Add a little bit more water to this. Okay, so now I have my soil in my container, and I'm going to open up my seed packet. And you can see there's a lot of seeds in there. Not every seed is going to germinate. So you do want to plant a little bit thicker, or seed a little bit thicker than what you would want out of a container this size. And just because things didn't germinate, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just didn't germinate. So take some seeds and sprinkle it on top. I would probably only use about half of this packet in this one container. I'm going to put these back in here. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now, when you put your seeds in here, especially if you're doing a couple of different types of species, you're going to want to label what you got in here. So I have some of these labels that I like to use in my garden. I use it both for growing native plants and also for vegetables. And so I'm going to write on here, this was from last year, I'm going to write on this side, and I know that this is not going to be Carolina sweet shrub. So I'm good. But if you think that you might get confused, you can always cross out last year's if you're going to reuse, which you should reuse. So I'm going to write wing stem. If you don't have these little plastic tags, you could just use a popsicle stick, and this is going to go right inside. Once it's in, you're going to seal your milk jug. I have packing tape. You could use duct tape if you want to. Maybe have a friend or a loved one help you. Kind of a two-human job.
Just make sure to use duct tape. Packing tape won't last through the winter.
Okay. Karina knows. She says use duct tape. She's got the knowledge, and we'll use that. So right now I only have packing tape, so that's what I'm using. But I'll fix it when I'm home. Okay, so now this is sealed, keeping it down. And the next thing on the outside, you also want to write down what you got in here. And for that, use a paint pen. This is Lori's advice. Sharpie out in this plastic all winter long, it's going to fade. So I have a paint pen. I'm just going to write in the outside wing stem. And for the funsies of it, what you could do is put this out now and write December 2021. And then you could do the other seeds and put them out in January or February, and then write wing stem February 2022, and compare. See if they germinated better, you have a better survivorship or a better germination rate. If you did some in December, some in January, February. And then the last thing that you want to do is take this lid off. What this allows is that for rainwater to go in and water your plant. One of my friends that did this, she left it on and had it sort of like its own little terrarium. And so condensation would build up and it would kind of rain back down on itself. And then she only watered it once or twice during the winter when it got kind of warm on some days, and later on in the spring. And then that was it. The only thing that I'm worried about with having this lid on is that if you get a really sunny day in January or February, even in March, that your little baby plants in here might get baked. So you can leave it on, you can leave it off. Just keep an eye on it. If you leave it on, if it's a really, really warm, sunny day, you might want to just go check, make sure it's not too hot inside. And also, if it's been really dry, you can go ahead and peek in and say, hey, are you guys dry in there? And you can also lift it up. So if it's really, really light, then there's not a lot of water in there. One thing that's really important with some seeds is that you press them down into the soil. You have really good seed to soil contact. Other seeds, it's not so important. They really need a lot of sunlight to be able to germinate. So I'm all about the experimentation. So you can always try half of your milk jug, you push it down, the other half, you leave it right on top and see what happens. Once you're ready to go, this is going to go outside. That cold, wetness of the soil is what's going to help break down that seed coat to allow these plants to germinate. And you're going to keep them outside until they start growing really sturdy. And I would say, till they're 1.5, 2 inches tall. And then we can maybe address this again in the spring of how to transplant them out of this container into individual pots or put them right in the ground. Another method, if you want to take this route, is not even use the milk jug and just direct seed. So that means you're going to prepare an area for your seeds. So you're just going to clear it of any leaf litter, rough up the soil a little bit so you can use a rake, sprinkle your seeds down, give them a little pat, and just let them go. One of the issues with that is that your seeds are going to be really super delicious for any of the little critters out there, because this is what their winter sustenance is. So you might have them not germinate because somebody ate them, which is fine. I mean, they're still doing good things, right? If a little creature eats them. But if you're trying to grow, I found that doing this method works a lot better. It worked better for me, cold stratifying my plants and growing them out in pots or in milk jugs than it did when I direct seeded them. But that is basically it. So just take your jug, put holes in the bottom, cut it around, potting soil, seed starting mix in, sprinkle your seeds down. You can give them a little pat down. Duct tape around the outside, some water, and then that's it. So I think that's all that I have. Are there any questions, Karina, that came through that you want me to answer?
There is a question of what to do to protect it from rodents during the winter.
Okay. So the question is what to do to protect these plants from rodents in the wintertime. So with a thing like this, you're probably not going to get a rodent. I mean, if there's like a really, really voracious mouse, maybe they climb up and get in there, but that would take care of itself because I don't think it's getting out if it got in there. If you do it in a pot instead, and that's the workshop that Rachel is going to run, with that, you're going to need some sort of what I call a germination station. So a germination station is just an area outside that is protected from rodents, and it has some sort of screen on top. I have one in my backyard. I used a bunch of scrap wood to build a square, and then I lined it with black plastic to keep weeds out. And I made a lid with some more scrap wood and some hardware cloth. And it just keeps mice and voles and chipmunks and squirrels out from my seeds. Because once they know there's that good food in there, they're going to be in there like nobody's business. So in this, I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you have a voracious rodent problem, maybe you do want to do the closed cap method. But for the most part, it shouldn't be too much of a problem with these types of jugs. It would be more of a problem if you're using pots.
Another question is, do you leave the milk jugs outside right now?
Yes. So the question is, do you leave the milk jugs outside right now? Yes, you do. You can even start this. You had a time machine. You could have started this in November. You can do it anytime in the winter. The danger of doing this too early, like doing it in September, is that things might germinate. So some of your really eager to germinate plants like wild bergamot might germinate in September, and then they're not going to have enough time to photosynthesize and build up that root system to be able to make it through the wintertime, so they're going to die. So I would suggest waiting until all your leaves drop on your trees, that it's getting cold outside and looks like everything is going dormant, and that's when you're going to want to do your germination. Any other questions?
Another question from Lori is, are there other seeds we can winter sow?
Absolutely. There's lots of species that you can overwinter. Even our office lights flickered with that. They were so excited. So lots of native plants you can overwinter fairly easily. In the workshop that we're going to be doing with Rachel, we'll be doing wild bergamot, blue vervain, rose mallow, golden Alexanders. Last year, I did about 30 native plants by seed, ranging from wild bergamot and scarlet bee balm to brown-eyed Susans and, oh my goodness, orange coneflower and purple coneflower and cardinal flower and blue lobelia and tons and tons and tons. There's so many different species that you can try. There's a toadshade farm, wildflower farm. You can buy seeds from them, and Randy is the owner, and she has them all labeled, whether they are easy to grow or moderately difficult or difficult. So you can always buy some seeds from there. I know Pinelands Direct also sells seeds that you could try. I mean, getting a little packet is only about $4, so it's not that expensive just to try it out and see if it works. And even in the seed packet that we sent in our annual appeal, there's about 50, 60 different seeds in there. And so what I would love is that if you had a lot of success with growing your seeds, that you use what you can in your landscape, and then you give the rest to your local library to have some sort of pollinator garden, or work with your local school system or another, nonprofit organization. Or if you want to give it back to us, we'll go ahead and put it at one of our restoration sites. And that's something that we're really encouraging our folks for the other workshop, because we're going to be using 6 different species, is to share it back. So we're so honored to be living in this area and be able to experience the Sourlands. And so being able to give back to your community and your ecological community, I think is a really wonderful thing. And so I would really encourage folks that use what you can in your property and then share it freely and openly with everybody else. Any other questions? That's it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have questions, you can follow up at stewards@sauerland.org. Make sure you get your plants in the ground, your seeds in the ground. It's a good thing. You're helping your environment. You're spreading beauty and food resources all around.